Hey, hi everyone. I'm doing this video as a follow-up to my video on questionnaire data entry in SPSS. I would have never guessed that that video would be my number one po popular video of all my videos. I guess once we've entered our data, we go our separate ways. Um, but because of its popularity, I've decided to do a follow-up video which I address the common questions asked to me in the latest session I had with my students. Uh, Reading briefly, um, ordinal variables go from a scale of 1 to 7. Can I treat it as scale? Okay, let's address that one. Alright, this question has also been asked on the YouTube. So let's give you an example first what that means. I've got this data set. Okay, massive data set. So your data might look like something like this after data entry. And yeah, let's have a look. So I've got here a level of education of father. So it goes from primary education, basic, secondary, vocational, blah blah, and it's quite a, well, in this case it goes to the scale of up to 6. Okay. Now, so this is ordinal because there is an ordering of the data here. Here it's the numbers, as the numbers increase, it means that they've got a higher level of education. But it's ordinal. The thing is, when you have an ordinal variable is a bit like a Jekyll and Hyde thing. So it can take on, sometimes it can act more like a categorical variable, and sometimes it can be used as a continuous variable. It really depends, as I told my students, it all depends on what type of analysis you want to do. How is it going to enter your analysis? In regression, if you have an ordinal variable you want to use as a dependent variable, and that ordinal variable has a long scale, say 5 or greater than 5, you can pretty much treat it as scale. Alright, in other words, continuous. And if you need a bit more information, we can treat it as what I call interval variable, interval type. Okay, so basically, the longer the scale, the more kind of acceptable it is to be able to treat it as continuous. If we want to use it in regression as an explanatory variable, it's still the same. So the longer the scale is, the more kind of reasonable it is to treat it as something that's scale. However, if you've got something which has got a long scale, say you've got a Likert scale from 1 to 7 or even 1 to 10, it's plausible that you will have maybe many values which take a very small number of observations. In other words, you'll get many boxes which are not ticked because your scale is so long. So you can imagine if you've got a scale from 1 to 10, a lot of people might tick close to 1 or high values like 8, 9, 10, but miss out the middle values. So in that case, if you're using it as regression, it's still fine. But if you're trying to use it to do something like crosstabs, you're going to find that that's not going to be fine. And in crosstabs, of course, since crosstabs deals with categorical data, so you've got no choice here, you can't treat it as continuous, and you've got many boxes which are not ticked, you're going to likely to have to recode to collapse that, what they call collapse the group. So instead of having 10 scale from 1 to 10, you have you break it down into groups, say 3 groups, maybe 1 to 3, 4 to 7, 8 to 10, something like that. So after all that, I just want to say, yes, an ordinal variable, just know it's like a Jekyll and Hyde. You can treat it as continuous if the scale is very long and you're doing something like regression. If you're doing something like crosstabs, you need it in categorical form, and then if it's very long, you're probably going to need to collapse your categories into fewer. So in that case, you need to view my video on recoding into different variables. Right, that's the first question addressed. Let's see what else I've got. Is it possible to see labels instead of coding? Okay, that's a really good question. I forgot to deal with that in my first video. Is it possible? Yes, because suppose I don't see this. Let's go to data view. Alright, so I'm faced here with a whole list of numbers. If I'm entering data for the first time ever, I might feel uneasy about seeing all these numbers. I don't know if I've kind of coded it doing it along the right lines, or whether I made really a mistake unless I look at these numbers very carefully. Well, if you look up here, this is a nice little button here. It's got an arrow pointing to a number and a pointing to a letter, because that's toggling between value coding and your labels. So if I press it, watch what happens. There. So what's happened there is like whatever has been coded turns into labels, and then you toggle back to the code. And those numbers which stay as numbers, presumably they are scale. Look at this. This column does not change when I press it. But for example, yeah, like this guy does. See, so this is categorical. Alright, so that's a nice way just to see whether if you want to kind of flip back and forth between the code and the labels. Just to recap, the labels, if we go to variable view, the labels is here. It's kind of the full name of whatever your variable is. Okay, so that's the second one. Third question, I want to move a variable up the list. Is this possible? Okay, variable view. Right, so I've got a variable view. Here, this is actually what we're looking at here is the social survey data for European countries. We go down here, and wow, there's 672 variables. Well, it's not likely unless you're doing a massive PhD that you're going to have that many variables. Say, just out of randomly, we want to move this variable to the top. How do I do that? What you do, oh, hang on, I don't know. Say I want to move this TV tot all the way to the top, move it to row 1. How do you do that? You can take hold of it. So left click on 7, just pull your mouse up to the top. You can see that little white square. I'm pointing on my finger, but you can't see it. So now I'm on row 1. I let go and see what happens. Oh no, row 2. See what happens. There. You can see it's just moved up there. Okay. So I want to drag it down. Oops. Say I want to drag it back like this. Okay. So you want to press on the value. You don't want to be pressing on the here or any other columns, because otherwise it won't light up. So it's got to light up the whole row, then you know you've got it. And you can see a no entry sign. That means you've got hold of it, and then just drag it to where you want and drop. Say you want to kind of, just along that line, just say you want to insert a variable right in the space. You just on the number, on the row number, you right click this time, insert variable, and if we press insert variable, there you go, a variable appears. So type in new var like that. Okay, I want to undo that, so I right click and I clear. Good. Right, next. I have loads of variables. Is there a quicker way to reach the data entry for my variables? As I said, we've got over 600 variables here. Say I want to kind of reach this 404th one, which is called this. If I go to data view, I'm going to have to drag this to the right, and it could give me a headache when I'm searching for it. You know, your eyes will just go bog-eyed looking for your variable. So is there a quick way to access? Yes, there is. Say I want to access this 405th variable, which is called that thing. What you do is just double click on the row number. Double click like this. It takes you straight to it. See, and that's for any variable. I'll do it for another one. Bit like magic, this. Say this one. IOACPTP. Double click. Takes me straight there. Okay, so that's a nice feature. I'm using data that's more than one type of missing value. Please explain. Okay, final question. Recall in that video I taught you about missing values. In that video, I taught you just how to enter a missing value. You know, I said enter something like where it's radio button, click here, type 999, okay, and then that's fine. But here, why have you got range plus 1 optimal discrete missing values? What on earth does it mean? Low 77 to high 99. Well, this means that any value, they've done this because they're saying that any value they code as between 77 and 99 will be classified as missing. So you might be saying, why on earth would we need to have so many different types of missing values? Because surely a missing value is missing. Yes, you can. That's a sensible answer, and that's would be an acceptable answer. You don't need to have several entries. You don't have to kind of distinguish between all the missing types. But let's see what they've done here. Alright, because they've got these types because 77, they're saying, is refusal to answer the question. 88 meaning don't know. 99 meaning no answer. So when we're doing in the first video when I showed you how to just do a missing value, we meant it as, no, there's no entry, no answer for whatever reason. But they've kind of broken it down. I mean, I don't know why you would need to do this. It's it just gives more it just gives you more work. So typically you don't need to do this. You know, I don't see any reason to kind of split it down into various groups. But just know that they'll all be classified as missing. So in any analysis, don't worry, it won't enter 77 or 88 into your analysis. Okay, so I hope that's cleared everything up. There are loads of questions as well to come out of our session, student session, with to do with recoding, and I might do a follow-up video to that. You know, I tend to do videos where I see a lot of students looking and indeed liking the video, because that shows there's an interest for that subject. And I guess at this time of year, there's a lot of students. I mean, February/March, by the way. A lot of students doing projects. So good luck, guys, and you know, once you've entered your data, I know you all go your separate ways, so maybe some of my other videos can help. Bye then.